1. What is heat transfer? Heat transfer is the process by which thermal energy is exchanged between different systems. Heat can be transferred through conduction, convection, or radiation. 2. What is conduction? Conduction is the transfer of heat through a solid or stationary fluid by direct contact between adjacent atoms or molecules. 3. What is Fourier's law? Fourier's law states that the rate of heat transfer through a material is proportional to the temperature gradient, change in temperature per unit distance, and the cross-sectional area of the material, and is inversely proportional to the material's thermal conductivity. The equation for Fourier's law is Q is equal to K dt dx, where Q is the heat flux, K is the thermal conductivity of the material, A is the cross-sectional area, and dt dx is the temperature gradient. 4. What is thermal conductivity? Thermal conductivity is a measure of a material's ability to conduct heat. It is defined as the rate at which heat flows through a material per unit area and per unit temperature gradient. The C unit for thermal conductivity is watts per meter Kelvin, WMK. 5. What is the heat equation? The heat equation is a partial differential equation that describes the time-dependent temperature distribution in a material undergoing heat transfer. The equation is rho Ctt is equal to dot Kt plus Q, where rho is the density, C is the specific heat capacity, T is the temperature, T is time, K is the thermal conductivity, is the Dale operator, and Q is the heat source. 6. What is convection? Convection is the transfer of heat through a fluid, liquid or gas, by the movement of the fluid itself. There are two types of convection, natural convection and forced convection. 7. What is natural convection? Natural convection is the type of convection that occurs when a fluid is heated and the heated fluid rises, while the cooler fluid sinks. This creates a natural circulation pattern that facilitates heat transfer. 8. What is forced convection? Forced convection is the type of convection that occurs when a fluid is forced to flow over a surface by an external means, such as a pump or a fan. 9. What is the Nusselt number? The Nusselt number, Nu, is a dimensionless number that relates the convective heat transfer coefficient to the thermal conductivity of a fluid. It is defined as Nu is equal to HLK, where H is the convective heat transfer coefficient, L is a characteristic length scale, and K is the thermal conductivity of the fluid. 10. What is the convective heat transfer coefficient? The convective heat transfer coefficient, H, is a measure of the rate of heat transfer between a solid surface and a fluid flowing over it by convection. It is defined as Q is equal to Ha T's Tf, where Q is the heat transfer rate, A is the surface area, T's is the surface temperature, and Tf is the fluid temperature. 11. What is the Reynolds number? The Reynolds number, Re, is a dimensionless number that describes the flow regime of a fluid. It is defined as Re is equal to rho Vd mu, where rho is the density of the fluid, V is the velocity, D is the characteristic length scale, and mu is the viscosity of the fluid. 12. What is laminar flow? Laminar flow is a type of fluid flow that occurs when the Reynolds number is low. In laminar flow, the fluid flows in smooth, parallel layers without mixing. 13. What is turbulent flow? Turbulent flow is a type of fluid flow that occurs when the Reynolds number is high. In turbulent flow, the fluid flows in irregular, chaotic patterns that can mix the fluid. 14. What is the Prandtl number? The Prandtl number, PR, is a dimensionless number that describes the ratio of momentum diffusivity to thermal diffusivity in a fluid. It is defined as PR is equal to mu Cpk, where mu is the dynamic viscosity, Cp is the specific heat capacity at constant pressure, and K is the thermal conductivity. 15. What is the Biot number? The Biot number, Bi, is a dimensionless number that describes the ratio of the heat transfer resistance inside a solid to the heat transfer resistance at the solid-fluid interface. It is defined as Bi is equal to HLK, where H is the convective heat transfer coefficient, L is the characteristic length scale, and K is the thermal conductivity of the solid. 16. What is the Stefan-Boltzmann law? The Stefan-Boltzmann law states that the total radiant heat energy emitted by a surface is proportional to the fourth power of the absolute temperature of the surface. The equation for the Stefan-Boltzmann law is Q is equal to sigma epsilon A, T4 Zer4, where Q is the heat flux, sigma is the Stefan-Boltzmann constant, epsilon is the emissivity of the surface, A is the surface area, T is the absolute temperature of the surface, and Zer is the absolute temperature of the surrounding environment. 17. What is blackbody radiation? Blackbody radiation is the type of radiation emitted by an object that absorbs all radiation incident upon it. A blackbody emits radiation over a wide range of wavelengths, and the spectrum of the radiation depends only on the temperature of the object. 18. What is radiation heat transfer? Radiation heat transfer is the transfer of heat through electromagnetic radiation. All objects above absolute zero temperature emit radiation, and the rate of radiation heat transfer depends on the temperature and emissivity of the objects. 19. What is the view factor? The view factor, Fij, is a dimensionless factor that describes the fraction of radiation emitted by surface I that is received by surface J. It is a function of the geometry of the surfaces and is calculated using complex mathematical equations. 20. What is the emissivity? The emissivity, epsilon, of a surface is a measure of its ability to emit radiation. It is defined as the ratio of the radiation emitted by a surface to the radiation emitted by a blackbody at the same temperature. 21. What is the absorptivity? The absorptivity, alpha, of a surface is a measure of its ability to absorb radiation. It is defined as the ratio of the radiation absorbed by a surface to the incident radiation. 22. What is the reflectivity? The reflectivity, ρ, of a surface is a measure of its ability to reflect radiation. It is defined as the ratio of the reflected radiation to the incident radiation. 23. What is the transmissivity? The transmissivity, tau, of a material is a measure of its ability to transmit radiation. It is defined as the ratio of the transmitted radiation to the incident radiation. 24. What is the Kirchhoff's law? Kirchhoff's law states that at thermal equilibrium, the emissivity of a surface is equal to its absorptivity at the same wavelength. 25. What is the Stefan-Boltzmann constant? The Stefan-Boltzmann constant, sigma, is a physical constant that relates the total power emitted by a blackbody to its temperature. Its value is 5.67 x 10, 8 Wm to K.